But now, even before the spectacle got underway, there were signs that we might be losing control of the situation. Here we were on this fine Nevada morning, this cool, bright dawn on the desert, hunkered down at some greasy bar in a concrete blockhouse and gambling casino called the Mint Gun Club, about 10 miles out of Vegas. And with the race about to start, we were dangerously disorganized. Outside, the lunatics were playing with their motorcycles, taping the headlights, topping off the oil in the forks, last minute bolt tightening, carburetor screws, manifold nuts, etc. And the first 10 bikes blasted off on the stroke of 9. It was extremely exciting, and we all went outside to watch. The flag went down, and those 10 poor buggers popped their clutches and zoomed into the first turn, all together. Then somebody grabbed the lead, a 405 Husqvarna, as I recall, and a cheer went up as the rider screwed it on and disappeared into a cloud of dust. Well, that's that, somebody said. They'll be back around in an hour or so. Let's go back to the bar. But not yet. No, there were something like 190 more bikes waiting to start. They went off 10 at a time every 2 minutes. At first, it was possible to watch them out at a distance of some 200 yards from the starting line, but this visibility didn't last long. The third brace of 10 disappeared into the dust almost 100 yards from where we stood, and by the time they'd sent off the first 100, with still 100 to go, our visibility was down to something like 50 feet. We could see as far as the hay bales at the end of the pits. Beyond that point, the incredible dust cloud that would hang over this part of the desert for the next 2 days was already formed up solid. None of us realized at the time that this was the last we would see of the fabulous Mint 400. Young men start. Let's see. A vintage example, and one that really did occur, is that of P.G. Wodehouse, captured by accident during the German invasion of France in 1940. Joseph Goebbels' propaganda bureaucrats asked him to broadcast on Berlin radio, which he incautiously agreed to do so, and his first transmission began. Young men starting out in life often ask me, how did you become an interviewee, an internee? Well, there are various ways. My own method was to acquire a villa in northern France and to wait for the German army to come along. This is probably the simplest plan. You buy the villa, and the German army does the rest. Somebody, it would be nice to know who, I hope it was Goebbels, must have vetted this and decided to let it go out as a good advertisement for German broad-mindedness. The funny thing is that the broadcast landed Woodhouse in an infinity of trouble with the British authorities, representing a nation that prides itself above all on a sense of humor. Ludwig in the joke must have known the feeling. Annoyed by his girlfriend Marketa, who's an upright type and a wholesome citizen, and irritated by her praise of the healthy atmosphere at a party school she's attended, rather than spend a week of debauchery with him, he sends an impulsive postcard saying, optimism is the opium of the people. The healthy atmosphere stinks. Long live Trotsky, and signs his name. And that's all it takes. The difficulty of this, from the radical standpoint, is as follows. Humor is easily enough definable as a weapon of criticism and subversion, but very often it is a mere comfort or survival technique. Ancient authorities understood this well, providing feasts of misrule to entertain the vassals and laying on licensed jesters and fools into the bargain. I've always thought it must be this that impelled Nietzsche to define a joke as an epitaph on a feeling. The feeling has hardly arisen when it's dissolved or dissipated into a birth of mirth or bathos. An unforgettable moment in Dr. Zhivago puts the cynic Komarovsky in the saddle. A salon of bourgeoisie riffraff falls silent and uneasy as the crowd of workers sings the revolutionary anthem underneath the balcony. He punctures the tension by exclaiming, perhaps they'll learn to sing in tune after the revolution. It's often said that radicals are humorless. This is certainly not intended as a compliment to the seriousness that they must affect. How wounding is the charge, or how wounding ought it to be? There are not many jokes in Zola, who actually relied more on sarcasm for some of his effects, nor is the work of George Orwell very rib-tickling, though he could be very witty enough at his own expense. By the way, what is often meant by the supposed humorless of their radicals is their supposed inability to laugh at themselves. But why should they accept invitation to consider their grand schemes absurd? Marx was often very funny. I don't know of any Gramsci or Luxembourg gags. At the nadir of the left in 1915, when he was trying to convene the few remaining delegates as a must prosecuted anti war conference at Zimmerwald, Trotsky found time to observe that you could now get all of the internationalists in Europe into 3 stagecoaches. Just a little bit more. He talks about, I'm a partisan of the pro wit radical faction myself, and that's why I so much admire Oscar Wilde, who was heading for exile and death in France about the time that Zola was crossing the channel in the other direction to escape his own persecutors. But I have to admit that this faces us with an apparent paradox of a kind that even Wilde may have found unyielding. The paradox is phrased most tautly by Jean-Paul Sartre in his essay on Baudelaire. Yes, Sartre, not usually considered a natural comic material until the Monty Python team decided to concentrate on the lighter side of Les Êtres de l'Honnête. Sartre distinguished between rebels and revolutionaries. The rebel, he says, secretly quite wants the world and the system to remain as it is. It is permanence, after all, that is the guarantee of his continuing ability to rebel. The revolutionary, in contrast, really wishes to overthrow and replace existing conditions. The second enterprise is obviously no laughing matter. As I write this, I realize that I am glad that there were no late night comedians during the Dreyfus affair. There are times when one wants to hold society's feet to the fire and to force a confrontation and to avoid the blandishments of those who always call upon everyone to lighten up and change the subject. Interesting quotes there from Hunter S. Thompson. Of course, the first one was from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and then a little bit of Christopher Hitchens' Letters to a Young Contrarian. We're just trying to let everyone catch up here, get the thumbs up and the share going before we get into the Bitcoin news. Then we're going to take your phone calls right here live on the World Crypto Network, or it's going to be a very short show. Most of the work with a koan takes place alone while sitting zazen, because in reality, there's nothing anyone can give us. There's nothing that we lack. Each one of us is perfect and complete, lacking nothing. That is why it is said that there are no Zen teachers and nothing to teach. But this truth must be realized by each one of us. Great faith, great doubt, and great determination are 3 essentials for that realization. It is a boundless faith in oneself and in the ability to realize oneself and make oneself free. And a deep and penetrating doubt which asks, who am I? What is life? What is truth? What is God? What is reality? This great faith and great doubt are in dynamic tension with each other and work to provide the real cutting edge of koan practice. When great faith and great doubt are also accompanied by great determination, the determination of 7 times knock down, 8 times get up, we have at our disposal the power necessary to break through our delusive way of thinking and realize the full potential of our lives. It's essential Zen. And finally, a little bit of Joan Rivers from I Hate Everyone, Starting With Me. I hate tipping. After every meal, there's always the moment when the waiter brings the check to the table. It's for $9.47. You put down $100 bill and he says, would you like some change? Let's see. The bill is $9.47 and I gave you $100 bill. You know what? I don't need any change. I always tip 8,000%. And if the $99 tip isn't enough for you, here are my keys. Take the car. Let yourself into my house. It's yours. No, really, this service was that good. And on your way up the stairs, feel free to lay with my sister. She's in the guest room. All right, let's move on to today's top stories. Today is Monday, April 29th, 2019. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is Bitcoin Talk Show. The price of Bitcoin is down 0.87% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 5,177, a high of 5,280, and a low of 5,137. That's $1 for 19,317 Satoshis. Venezuela Bitcoin trading record underscores fiat currency hyperinflation. That's right, if you're holding bolivars, it's much better to be holding Bitcoin. That's why Venezuela continues to chop the charts of local Bitcoins. Taking a look at the chart right here, it's up, 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 up for Venezuela and trading Bitcoin. $325 million Bitcoin accepting real estate project in Dubai pauses operations. After pausing the ICO and pausing construction, they've paused operations. It seems like the whole thing was just on pause. Bitcoin momentum falls bearishly, overbought for the first time since 2017. We may see a correction in the price of Bitcoin. Hold on to your hats. Historically bearish technical formation may spell trouble for Bitcoin bulls. We might see a correction. Bitcoin at $6,000 going the other direction could prove pivotal for institutional investors. That's right, as the price of Bitcoin rises above $5,000 and even $6,000, the overall market cap once again rises above $1 billion, the so-called Hoffman line. Remember, if the price is above $1 billion, banks and other institutions will be interested in Bitcoin. If it's below that, it's really not worth their time. Why Bitcoin could be headed to $10,000 and then a lot higher after that. Well, because there's only one Bitcoin for 21 million, and you could get your hands on one. Bitcoin bull Tom Lee says the crypto winter is over and all-time highs by 2020 are likely. Nice. Everyone wants the winter to be over. Everyone but this guy. And we're checking out the top stories on Bitcoin. We've got the price, the price, the price, the price, and the price. And don't forget about the price. We've got the Baroness, who is in charge of the luxury $1 million Dubai deal, which, as we said, is on pause and seemed like a bad idea the whole time. Then again, if you'd like to invest in a real estate project in Dubai, we also have oceanfront property available for you right here in Nevada. Active addresses on Bitcoin Cash, less than 33% of Dogecoin. Median transaction value below a penny. That's right, no one is using Bitcoin Cash. As expected, no one cares about a non-technological project, a project whose idea of scaling is just to make the blocks bigger. That's right, no one cares about the bigger, empty blocks of Bitcoin Cash. The Lightning Network can be to Bitcoin what HTML was to the internet. That's right, the Lightning Network, a technological solution to scaling a layer on top of a layer, as predicted by Hal Finney, is being incredibly successful at scaling the one true and real Bitcoin. No fake Satoshis needed, no unprovable proofs, no endlessly huge blocks are needed when you can use technology. That's right, technology and smart people to layer on top of Bitcoin and solve the scaling problem. I still haven't seen the Avengers movie, so don't spoil it for me. I won't spoil it for you. We're fundraising this morning to send MadBitcoins to Germany. That's right. I was just in England. I filmed more than 20 interviews for the Proof of Work series. You can check some of them out already being edited and released. I've got to get another one ready for Wednesday, but they're coming out every Wednesday. Check out the Proof of Work series right here on the World Crypto Network. And if you like them, donate to send MadBitcoins to Germany. We're only trying to raise around $1,000. If you each donate $100, that would be $1,000 if 10 people donated. So it's real easy. I'll just pause, have a drink of water while you guys get your wallets out. There you go. Entering your 2FA, sending some good old-fashioned SegWit Bitcoin to the address on your screen. Thanks so much for your support. Here's a fun tweet of Andy and Conan O'Brien in full lederhosen about the last time I was in Germany. I attended the Blockchain Hotel Conference, and I'll hopefully be going again in a few weeks. Here we are spreading Bitcoin awareness in Las Vegas. Oh, wait, that's the wrong slide, but still, always good to show MadBitcoins, spreading the word about Bitcoin in Las Vegas. Excellent stuff. And we'll be doing the same thing we did last time in Berlin. We had a meetup. The goal this time is to go to a conference in Essen, a conference in Amsterdam, and a conference in Berlin. That's right, 3 conferences. Try to gather some more interviews for the World Crypto Network. Here I am last year at the Frankfurt School of Business, of Finance and Management, German excellence, global relevance. There we are in Essen with the crew hanging out and learning about Ratchabug. Ratchabzug. Don't touch that. And there I was in Essen. Check out a little bit of the video, some of the digs there in Essen, some of the artwork from the Blockchain Hotel. I should be back there in just a couple of weeks. If you're in the Essen area and you'd like to check out an excellent Bitcoin conference, come on down to Blockchain Hotel. Tickets are still available. You could use the code MadBitcoins25 if you'd like to get a discount. Would love to see you there. Here's one of the many, well, here's one of the 2 dance clubs in Essen, Germany. And you could always get Wasser for tea. There's people talking about Bitcoin, making speeches, all of that. So it's all happening at Blockchain Hotel. Look, there's me and Tone Vase. Everybody was there at Blockchain Hotel. So check that out. Maybe even my Welsh, English, Scottish band will be performing. We've got everybody. And remember, whenever MadBitcoins goes on tour, the price of Bitcoin seems to go up. That's strange. As it says here, that's a big bull. But we're getting ready to take your phone calls here on the World Crypto Network. We're sitting here on Skype. We've got Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or on the old phone system at 1-518-600-1949. Just a quick show this morning, trying to get back on schedule. I'm back in Las Vegas doing the Marie Kondo thing. Don't know if you guys have heard about that, but she wrote a book back in 2014, and I just got my hands on it. It was on sale on the Kindle. You know how it is. They're always dragging you back with a little bit of book credit. Oh, you spent $10 last month. Here's a $2 credit to get you back in the store. Well, they got me, but this time they got me the book to end all books. Marie Kondo and her amazing ability to take an object in your hand and say, does this spark joy? I found several clothing items that were old that didn't spark joy. I've been working on maybe some cables that are old and don't spark joy. Eventually, I might even go through my books and try to see if I have any books that don't spark joy. But it's a great system for getting rid of stuff. It's a fantastic feeling when you have less stuff and your apartment is more clean. So definitely check out Marie Kondo and her great system. She's a bit of a Shintoist. Believes that everything's alive. Let's see. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, buddy. It's Cameron McCurdy with Survival Bros on YouTube, as seen on Viceland, calling from Seaside, Oregon, the beach. So shout out from the beach. How you doing today?
We're doing good, Cameron. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
All right. So the biggest news of the week to me was that these Coinstar machines are now going to be dishing out some kind of voucher or redemption code for Bitcoin. So I just want to know what your thoughts were. I saw they're available in Washington State, pretty close to where I'm at, but not in Oregon yet. So that's the big news. And I was just wondering what you thought of the CoinMe brand and their business philosophy, you know, since they're like a wallet kind of business plan versus like a paper wallet plan, which is what I kind of wanted. So just let me know what you think about CoinMe and the Coinstar machines, please.
Sure thing, Cameron. Well, I would say it's always exciting because what's great about Coinstar is they only want you to invest your coins. So it's really easy to say to somebody, let's go take that jar of coins. Maybe it's $20 to $40. Let's invest that in Bitcoin. Like they're saying in the chat, it does require KYC. So in between getting your coins, getting that voucher, and signing up at that website, you're going to have to give up your identity. So this is money. If you make money on this, you're going to want to pay the taxes on this. Because otherwise they're going to come asking, obviously. But it's a great way to put 20 or 40 bucks in. I think you're also going to pay a percentage on it. But nice, easy way to show people how to use Bitcoin. 4%. That's not that bad. And
I think it's 4%. But my main concern is that you can't put coins in and get Bitcoin. I think you have to put in dollar bills, fiat, and you can do as little as $1 with that 4%. So I don't think you're going to be able to throw in some quarters and even at like a 10 or 11, 12% rate get any Bitcoin. I think you're going to have to put in dollars.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be a tough sell until they get the coin side of it running. Although it's still good for people, they could kind of use it like a Bitcoin ATM then. You just bring in the 20, 30 bucks, you put it in, it converts it into a voucher. Then you take to the voucher to the website, get the Bitcoin. Not quite a direct Bitcoin ATM, but remember, there are tons of these Coinstar machines. They're all existing. And if they can push a software push out to this and transform them all into Bitcoin ATMs, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it's madness. But yeah, thanks for your thoughts on that. And hopefully that grows the community a little bit.
It sounds good. And it's a great way to show people maybe there's not a Bitcoin ATM in your town. Keep an eye on that grocery store. There's a Coinstar ATM.
Exactly. Albertsons is full in on the blockchain. And I would like to say one other quick point before I get off, that the Coinstar machines have been spitting out silver coins. I got a video about it on Survival Bros, but real money falls right through to the return chute. And so I just walk around to these stores and I'll get foreign money and silver coins and maybe even a gold coin someday, just because they don't recognize real money as money. I thought you'd like that, buddy.
Yeah, it sounds like a great way, especially if you could go to the bank, get a bunch of quarters, dump them in there, and anything that falls out, real money, silver dollars.
Yeah,
That's nothing,
filter
the
it
really
for me,
old ones.
baby.
All right,
Right.
thanks
All
so
right.
much,
Well, thanks
Cameron,
for
for
your
the
time.
call.
Good work.
Yeah, give us a
All right.
call
Peace.
anytime. And if you'd like to call in right now, we're taking calls on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. We kind of had two calls at the same time there, so if you want to call back, we only have the one phone line. What do you guys think about Coinstar? I think it's great when anyone starts taking Bitcoin again. Sure, it's not the libertarian dream. You know, you dump the coins in, you get the Bitcoin directly. Great for, you know, mountain people and so on. It's the, you know, it's the capitalist dream. You put dollar bills in, you put real bills in, you get a voucher, you go to a website, you prove your identity or someone's identity, and then you get Bitcoin. Of course, I then suggest withdrawing that Bitcoin to a wallet that you control, not leaving it on there. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Name's Tony. I'm calling from New York.
All right, Tony. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Okay, so I bought some, a few years back, put it in cold storage, and really hadn't been keeping up with things. So I've been hearing something about the Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Did one of them have a fork or something recently?
Well, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that happened there. Just to kind of sum it up quickly, what you can do with Bitcoin is you can do a soft fork, or a hard fork, where you make a copy of all the addresses. So let's say, for example, that you had a Bitcoin. If they made a hard fork of Bitcoin like Bitcoin Cash, you would now have one Bitcoin and one Bitcoin Cash. The same thing for Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, all these other kind of projects where really what they're doing is they're using Bitcoin as a mailing list. So everyone on this mailing list gets a little bit of our new product. So Bitcoin Cash is not really Bitcoin. They have a scaling solution where they keep making the blocks bigger, whereas Bitcoin right now has a scaling solution which is SegWit and the Lightning Network, which is kind of a layer on top of that. And there's a whole political debate and discussion there. But for a basic understanding, you now have both of those on your paper wallet plus any other Bitcoin fork.
Oh, okay. And what was the latest, most recent fork or said what this happened?
It was well, I think it's been about at least a year, maybe a year and a half since the Bitcoin Cash fork. Then the people who did Bitcoin Cash, they had an argument with themselves and they split off. And now there's this one called Bitcoin Cash SV or Bitcoin Cash Satoshi Vision. And that one allegedly has this guy who says he's Satoshi, but can't seem to prove it. So yeah, you would get those as well. So basically, if you're fine holding your position, you can just keep holding. And if Bitcoin Cash wins or Bitcoin wins or Bitcoin SV wins, you'll have, an equal amount of whatever you originally had.
Okay. So I don't have to do anything right now, correct?
You don't have to do anything right now. Some people would say you could take that and sell the Bitcoin Cash. Maybe you don't believe in it. You could get money now, but then of course it could go up in the future. All those kind of things. But generally, your Bitcoin is safe on your paper wallet. It's just all these other things are now safe on there too.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So how would I recognize this new, whatever the BSV or whatever it is? Is there a way to separate the two or to show that
Yeah, it's a little complicated. So I would definitely say to seek out some tutorials because basically your private key is the private key that unlocks your Bitcoin, but it's also the private key that unlocks your Bitcoin Cash or your Bitcoin SV. So if you go to some website and claim your Bitcoin SV, you could accidentally expose your Bitcoin as well as all your other forks as well. So basically, you kind of have to move your Bitcoin to a new safe address, then start getting your forks each one at a time, or maybe finding a tool that gets all of them. Again, at your own risk. Be careful there. But as long as you send your Bitcoin off to a new address, you're pretty much protecting your original investment. Then you're just trying to acquire, and then it's up to you if you want to sell or if you want to hold these forks, or if you just want to put the forks in a new address, so they would be safe. There's a lot of potential maintenance there. Everybody that I know is holding on to their old paper wallets, their old private keys. You never know these days. Maybe one of these forks turns out to be valuable and you accidentally hold it. Or in the past, a lot of people were selling their Bitcoin Cash because it was very high up. So it was interesting stuff. A lot of things going on there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Hey, I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate the info. I think I'm going to stay on top and start watching some more tutorials and stuff like that and learning more about Bitcoin and the rest of them.
It's a way to go. And remember, you're always good just holding what you have and then just learning more about all this other stuff. But thanks so much for the call, Tony. It's definitely asking good questions like this helps other people learn as well. So,
Okay, no problem. I'll try. If I come up with some more, I'll call in again in the future.
all right. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Have a great day.
And you can call us right now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. Tony had a great question there. It's amazing how much can happen in Bitcoin if you spend even 6 months or a year away. We have all these different kind of versions of Bitcoin on there now. They're all attached to your keys. It's interesting stuff. So, good stuff. You can give us a call on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or on the old telephone at 1-518-600-1949. It's also tough trying to recap someone about years of political infighting and history and drama and chaos. And you don't want to come down too harshly on the drama and the chaos because who knows? The other side could win, all that kind of thing. Although I don't really believe that for a second. But you want to present it fairly and let them go out there and discover how much exciting fun we've been having with all these new Bitcoin forks. Although they're not really new anymore. It's just about the time when you come back to crypto. You spend some time away, you come back, everything has changed. Yeah. We had some great comments in the chat earlier. They're talking about the coins, reminding me about the KYC on the Coinstar machines. Definitely a thing, definitely a consideration. Although most Bitcoin ATMs also have KYC right now. That means know your customer. That means they're going to take a picture of your driver's license, maybe a picture of you, and that later on, if you're little Bitcoin you bought at the machine turns out to be big money, you should, of course, pay taxes on it because they're going to know. Of course, a lot of people get around this by having their employees or their girls or their customers or what have you go to the Bitcoin ATM for them, and then the tax liability would be on them. But that's like anything else. It can happen. So let's see, they're talking Game of Thrones in the chat. I don't want to spoil anything, but my predicted winners are continuing their path to victory and have once again shown themselves to be the true stars of the show, starring in the last 2 episodes. No spoilers. Also excited about Avengers. Of course, no spoilers there either, and I haven't seen it yet, but I don't believe for a second that all those people are dead, but I do believe that more people are going to die and it's going to be spectacular. So excited about the Marvel movies. They've been doing some great stuff out there. People in the chat want to chat about post Bitcoin. Well, I'm not sure what that means. Bitcoin still, oh, there we go. Post fiat. Oh, that's the other side. I mean, the only post Bitcoin I know is when the machine stops spitting out new Bitcoin is something like 2130. And if we're still alive by 2130, boy, we've got all kinds of other problems and other solutions. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network.
Hi there.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling you from Hungary.
All right.
And I'm actually researching Bitcoin right now. I'm a master's student at a Hungarian university. And, I was kind of wondering about if you ever been talking with anybody about, how the world going to look like when there's hyper Bitcoinization going on. And like when we went into a parallel financial system that's running on Bitcoin.
Well, I think the world would be very different in a lot of ways. One of the early ways when I saw this is I thought that, wow, there'll be no more war because you can't borrow money to make bombers. And if you can't do that, then you can't get the bombers to threaten your neighbors. Then you can't. It's a cycle where the ability of governments just to print money because they feel like it stops a lot of the war impetus. Because once you have the bombers, well, you may as well use them. You put money into them. But in the same way, to look at it on the other side, it ends disaster relief. Whereas now, if we have a tornado or a hurricane, government prints up a bunch of money. They give it to the people affected. They pay the people to help those people, so on and so forth. Now, if you want to have disaster relief, and Bruce Springsteen's out there saying donate money, if you don't donate money in a totally Bitcoin world, there is no disaster relief. There's $100, there's $200, there's not that much there. So I think it changes the world in a lot of interesting ways, but the general one being just as soon as everyone realizes that Bitcoin has value, it's not controlled by a government, it's not controlled by a
I agree
bank.
with that. But, there's this whole thing that, what people don't often realize is that, Bitcoin created a new parallel economical system for us that runs beside a government system that we're using. Because, governments in this current world cannot function in a deflationary world. The deflation is only a positive aspect for the end users, us citizens of a country, for example. That's why, we have countries competing against each other, even in the US. It's like how was the US created, like competing states like everywhere. But, the whole point with inflation is that inflation is affecting everybody's financial capabilities. We are getting much more pushed to the sidelines because banks are being more how would I say preferential towards more rich people. Like I would say, I've been reading this book from called as the Unbanking America from Lisa Servan. I don't really recommend it for anybody because it contains like 3 pages about a shitcoin that I don't really like. But it's really interesting, like how the banks in America started disintegrating ever since the 70s when this regulation came in about the not the subprime mortgages, but sometime around the 80s. not really sure about it, but
Well, there was the savings
you
and
know,
loans. There was also the going off the gold standard. So those
yeah,
two.
going on the gold standard. But it was made a point that when you were like, I don't know if you ever experienced it, but in the past, when you've been into banks, for example, you were much more like a family environment, like like how check cashing institutions are like in America right now, because banks are really slow to check cashes, for example. But if you go to check casher, for example, like what is this place, they check your cash really quickly. But even though you're paying much more for the checks, you don't really feel like you're being ripped off, because when you go to a check casher, for example, you can see all the stuff written out on the sign, like how much you're going to pay for money order, or like paying a bill or something. It's quite interesting. But if you
Sure, but the people that go to those
for
services generally
example,
don't have a choice. If you're
yeah,
if you're at a check casher, it's
they are,
great that they're quick,
they are
but the amount of horrible interest that you're paying on that check, it doesn't matter. You have to pay your bills. But yeah, I don't. They're still both kind of bad. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but the problem is that the check cashing system basically eliminates the individual's access to the free market. You cannot participate on the internet. You cannot send transactions to anybody. You're just localized down into a local area, and then just squished into this little bubble that I would call that you cannot get out of. That's where I would say just be stuck in this whole world of cycles. Because, for example, like you're in Hungary, my mother works at a factory, used to work at a factory, but how would I say her life would have been like? I mean, her life was like, I would say it. She woke up, she went to the factory, she came back home and slept and go to sleep, and then the cycle restarts. Then you go to the pub somewhere, talk with her mates or something like that. But people are living in this bubble right now, and they're not getting out of it. And this is kind of creates this problem for society, that we having this stagnation going on. And this is what I'm considering as one of the main points that accelerating Bitcoin adoption right now, is that people are stuck in a bubble. They don't have a option to step one ahead and like progress in
Well,
life.
and part of that is that people feel safe in the bubble. In the bubble, you can just work at the factory and you can make widgets, and they don't have to be the best widgets in the world. Whereas I've kind of felt this for a long time because I always wanted to make movies or books or even academic work. When you make those kind of things, you're competing against the best in the world. I'm on YouTube with the other best YouTube shows in the world. That's where I want to be. I'm not going to win all the time,
Huh?
but I'm in that competition. If you're in that bubble, you're kind of safe. You can just make widgets every day. It's the factory's problem. But I think that Bitcoin and the internet largely together, it's giving everyone access to this market, but it's also
Yeah,
giving everyone
exactly. Yeah.
competition in this
But
market. So
that's
it's good and bad, but isn't it interesting, right? I mean, super interesting.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like if you would move everything for the individuals onto the Bitcoin network, you would open up a whole range of possibilities that could happen. It's obvious that it depends on like how quickly we're gonna start transitioning from the fiat system into the Bitcoin system that we're gonna have in the future. Because it means that if we transition too fast, we could see a catastrophic hyperinflation happening. Because it's possible now to prove that hyperinflation, it doesn't require government central banks to print out a lot of money. The perception of people can actually change in order to start to having this perception that the dollar doesn't hurt that much, so I should be asking much more dollars if I want to buy more Bitcoins, for example. And this instantly creates a hyperinflationary effect.
Well, I definitely think we're heading that way, and it's more a matter of when we go into hyperinflation rather than if. I agree that
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sooner that it happens, the
It's more
worse
like
it
a
is for the
6 year
worst number of
term that I would
people.
say.
But
But if you don't have like a longer period to like prepare people for transitioning into the Bitcoin system, it could be catastrophic. Like they think about all the retirees or people who are not really using Bitcoin right now, or really analphabets related to computer usage. Those are probably the most endangered species right now in this space. Not everybody is able to use a computer on that level.
it really is, and if you think about just the iPhone, 10 years ago, no one had an iPhone. They had a bad headphone jack. It
Yeah.
was very 1.0. Right now, everyone has an Android or an iPhone. They have an internet communicator in their pockets, and it's just like that. If you were one of those people, "I'm not gonna get an iPhone. I'm gonna wait this out," it's over now, right? You're completely disconnected. Everyone out there is, learning, using maps, using all kinds of technologies that allow you to become kind of a cyborg or a superhuman. And I think the same is going to happen with Bitcoin and with automation. We've been having a lot of debates and
Yeah,
discussions about
this is
universal
interesting
basic
with the
income.
internet. For example, like in the Philippines, people think there that Facebook is the internet. I don't know if or I think it's in Myanmar. I think it's in Myanmar actually. That
Sure.
they were like saying that like the internet is so localized for them on the Facebook. They think that Facebook is the internet for the entire community because on mobile phones people don't really explore the internet.
No, and it's just the app. You don't get outside of your app, but it's still what a thing when you get challenged and you have to install a Bitcoin wallet or you have to install WhatsApp.
Yeah,
Which again, is sadly
exactly.
owned by Facebook, but still another way to communicate different options. So
I actually had a conversation with my lecturer, and I asked her like, how fast can we transition from cultural biases? And she said that transition is really, really slow. But when we introduce in a panic situation for society, adaptation can happen really, really quickly. That's what I was thinking. Like if we would have a hyperinflation happening, people will be much more easily forced to use Bitcoin because if we think about like what kind of things we can achieve with Bitcoin. For example, like we're gonna have this in the future, the decentralization of the stock market. What we can already see happening right now is that
sure.
basically what's gonna happen is that there gonna be like a transition of wealth. What I would say like stock assets basically for large companies into the hands of Bitcoin users because Bitcoin users are much more who are now what I would say are like much more interesting group of individuals who are much more like community oriented because spontaneous sociability actually exists in the Bitcoin community. You could see that with the We Are All Holding Out campaign going on. So this is a really interesting thing. And what I've been wanting to say is that uh, when hyper Bitcoinization going to start happening, we will see that much more people will be accessing stocks and all kind of other equities. They're going to be purchasing these things, and that's when things are going to get wild. When more and more people are going to be participating in all these stock trading and things like that.
Well, I think it will be wild. More people will be buying, more people will be selling. The markets will be much more
A lot
fluid.
more.
A lot more ups, a lot more downs. And I do think Bitcoin and other cryptos will all be the entryway for all of that. A lot of people don't have access to banks or to stocks or to any kind of investment at all. And I think they're all going to be given access and they're going to take access. So I think it's going to be really interesting. We'll have to see how it goes.
We will see how it goes because so far, I mean, even I didn't know what the hell a MACD signal was until 2016. And afterwards, I actually managed to figure out all these kind of trade analysis things and all the kind of just jazz bullshit. But the thing with that is that, when you give this information to many people, then you open up way more possibilities for society. Because this is one positive thing that Bitcoin started is that made people who were completely unaware of these things that they were now able to analyze patterns and see how these things are fluctuating and able to speculate on assets and whatever else. So this is in one aspect a positive thing. That's why I'm still thinking that the hyper Bitcoinization could actually increase the rate of development and things we're seeing right now, like by tens or hundreds of percent. I mean 100x. So like what we see right now with GDP per capita in for example America and the United States, we could see much more development going on. Even though we would see like a 1 or 2 or 3 year maximum recession, that's more like up for debate, and I'm not really sure about still looking into it.
That could be the way to get out of the debt bubble, to just blow it up more with hyperinflation of Bitcoin, and just to continue printing in a different way, at least for a while. I think eventually it's all going to go into Bitcoin, and they're going to lose their control. So that'll
Yeah,
be
this
interesting
is
to see.
interesting also, like how credit is starting to flow into Bitcoin. Can we call credit like a produced value? Because here we are not inventing a new money, but reinventing human produced value. Because human produced value is going to be much more stable this way if we're going to be investing it. I mean, not investing, but storing it in Bitcoin. Because if we store it on fiat, then 10 or 20 years later, that money is going to be much less than what we would see in Bitcoin, for example.
I think they really have to worry. When I think of what a natural thing that it resembles a black hole. Bitcoin takes in their money, and each time they come back to buy more Bitcoin, they
Yeah.
print more money, and each time the printed money is worth less and less and less, and the Bitcoin's worth more and more and more. So I think it's really exciting for people to try to get in and to get in now with a reasonable investment before the banks and to see what happens afterwards because sure, the early banks, the early countries that give in and start essentially putting their money into the black hole, they're going to do very well. But the later countries, the later banks, the people who are the slow ones to the table, I don't know how they're going to come back from it. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, like Venezuela is going to be taking over the world with their Bitcoins, basically.
Venezuela, North Korea, we're gonna have some strange rulers if things roll the way that it seems like it's possible they could. And of course, you know, money doesn't rule everything. They could always take it by force.
But at
So
least
that's
we are seeing, that people who don't have money, at least they will have the option to, start coming up, because this trickle down economy that we used to have these days is not going to work in the future, because when the state tries to hold up the welfare system, it just doesn't work. What the whole thing that Bitcoin going to cause, the whole welfare state is going to collapse, and countries will be forced to push the social responsibilities onto citizens. Because if you cannot tax people, because you won't be able to with Bitcoin, obviously, Bit 39 actually made it possible to completely avoid taxes. So that kind of makes forces countries to suspend financing social institutions, for example, like hospitals, education, public services like the ambulances, fire trucks, fire service, whatever else. And then people will have to upkeep this system by themselves. If they're making money, they have to keep it up, because if you're not going to have these, we're going to have instability. And
we
then
we could also cut back on military spending. We could have less military spending, and maybe they could just provide the services that people like. One of the great examples I always cite is, although it's generally considered a terrorist organization, the group Hamas actually provides hospitals and value to its people. So when the people think of Hamas, they don't think terrorist organization. They think the group that gave me a hospital, the group that helped out. So it's interesting. I think if you have a positive view of government, which is still possible, the libertarians disagree in the audience. But if you have a positive view, the government could provide the things that make society stable, the things that make life worth living, community functions, police, fire, basic
this is a
roads,
problem.
security.
This is actually a problem. This is something what I actually read in Francis Fukuyama's book called Trust, is that
Mhm.
there's differences, for example, like in Italy, on part of development, for example, like how government is taking part in certain functions. Like, for example, like in France, and like how face-to-face is much more different, causes much more different behavior in companies, because of how government is always interfering with companies' company policies, and like what companies can do in France, for example. Uh, Also, there's what I would say like differences, like what you were actually just trying to get around, is this thing like how governments can interfere. But for example, like in I think more like in South Italy, that was the problem. That the more we had the government intervention in company policies or company structures and things like that, there was this problem that people started saying that, like, why should I start a company when the government is going to be doing this thing for me? Like, why should I invest my money if I have like $1 million? Why should I invest it into companies when it should be instead the government's job? If you remove this responsibility from the government to keep up institutions or run companies or do investment, then we force people to actually start improving their own lives, and they would care more about what is going on around them. Because most people who are living in this welfare bubble right now, what I call it, they're just stuck in this bubble and they don't really see a way out of it. And even those who are rich, they probably also in this echo chamber.
Well, I want to shock you by going to the argument of the future, which is actually horrifying to you, that we probably need to add tons more people to this welfare bubble, that we're going to need some kind of a universal basic income, because pretty soon the problems of automation may eliminate most jobs. So I don't know what we're going to do with all those people. They aren't very good at jobs. They can't really be retrained. It's easy to say they
Oh,
can fix computers or robots, but we're really talking about young people then. We're not talking about retraining truck drivers. But what do
uh,
you think?
this would
Basic
actually cause
income,
like
end of
big
scarcity?
disturbance,
Sorry, go ahead.
actually. basically this was actually solved by the Japanese and Germans. For example, with the Japanese, the lifetime employment actually solved this problem. The companies who retained employment were much more inclined towards, especially the Germans, to retrain their labor force. Because if you're retraining your labor force, basically you're allocating new resources into a different type of work that your employee could do. So this means that when you have like a lot of employees in Germany, for example, let's say if I'm like Volkswagen or something, if I want people to move from the factory floor to somewhere like accounting or somewhere else, I can actually offer for these employees training courses or other opportunities to start going up on the ladder. But for example, we don't actually see this in the United States or in other countries, for example, like Italy or China, because they're like different types of trust behavior that we see outside of the family.
It would be great if we had a system like that in the United States. My basic understanding of our system is that slavery was actually too expensive because, as you say, you have to take care of the slaves when they're older. You can't damage them. You're damaging your own property. So we came up with wage slavery, which is actually much cheaper for the people who own the factories. Now, if somebody gets hurt, you just fire them. You bring somebody else in the same way here, rather than retraining the truck drivers to fix the electronic trucks or some kind of your related job. They're just going to fire all the truck drivers. They're just going to fire all the cashiers. So it's,
because in the US there's different in this individualistic society, even though there's high trust in the society, that people don't really see these things as a positive effect. People are much more expendable than, for example, let's say like in other high trust societies, like in Germany, for example. These are just large complex social cultural differences that kind of matter here, because what we see right now developing in the Bitcoin community is that we see much more high trust building up. The unwritten code of trust is now being developed by its members, and we just see it now being torn apart every day, reinvented. And sometime when we will see much more Bitcoin adoption going on, we will see much more, these consortium, these keiretsus that we would see in Japan forming up even among members of Bitcoin communities. So we would see these people start trading with each other, creating companies and doing all kind of stuff. So I do think that even if automation going to happen, we will see much more skilled labor getting retrained and reappropriated to other type of work areas, so to keep them more useful, basically.
and I do agree with what you said. It's all about trust, and we have a certain kind of Bitcoin value that's being developed here, where if you break these rules, if you break those rules, you're out of the Bitcoin community. But if you uphold these positive values, if you believe in these other things, you're part of the Bitcoin community. And I really do think it's going to expand. And on the other side of this, people are going to look around for other people who saw it early, other people that have similar values to them, and other people that they can trust to build governments or to build companies or to build private islands with, whatever it's going to be.
Definitely.
So yeah, I think we're going to see more of that.
Agree with you there. Yeah, because if you take a look at, for example, like if we cannot trust in the government, and if we cannot trust in banks for running our money, and in the end we cannot trust the central banks, who can we trust? Only the only kind of aspect that can come out of this thing is that we can only trust those who basically are in our near vicinity, people who we know. And this is how people start looking for new alternatives, for example, like Bitcoin. Because if you know that your money is starting to lose value, you cannot trust your government, you cannot trust the banks. You will start looking for alternatives. Humans are utility maximizing creatures who try to find the best solutions for them. So that's why Bitcoin is basically like an emotional response for the crisis that we're seeing right now with the trust. Because when we see the fluctuations of trust happening, because like we can see it right now with the Trump administration, all kind of things, but this is just temporary. But what is actually much more real is that there is a growing generalized distrust building up in people, and that is in my opinion driving up Bitcoin adoption even more.
I definitely agree with that, and I think Bitcoin is part of the internet, part of the response, part of the response to the old style of running things, the top-down approach. And Bitcoin's much more of a bottom-up approach. So is the internet. You get back what you put into it, but it is very democratizing, very leveling. Everyone can join this community. Everyone can be a part of it, but you can only do it by following the unwritten rules and by understanding why those rules are there and what people are for and against. It'll be interesting to see how it turns
Well,
out.
that's democracy, basically. Well, thank you very much for your time. I need to go. So,
All right. Thank you so much for the call. Give us a call anytime. I'd love to hear from you. All right. And you can give us a call now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518-600-1949. What do you guys think? They're saying in the chat, national dividend has a better ring to it. I agree. Andrew Yang is trying to sell it as the freedom dividend, the idea of universal basic income. But once again, what does it matter? Does UBI and social programs all fail under the future of Bitcoin, where there is actually a universal monetary unit that's not controlled by a central bank or a government, which would be wholly brand new, something we've never done before as a people. Checking out the fundraiser, we did have a donation. We've had one donation. Let me see if I can't get over to the screen. Here it is. Donation received. We'd like to thank donor 0.002, making it easy on me to read. They donated around $10.51 just to get the fundraiser going. So if you guys would like to see me go to Germany, as he was saying, one of the places with a unique social structure that values people perhaps more than the United States. All over Europe, I've seen these little small gardens called pensionaires or pensions, where when you're old, they give you a garden to go garden on. And as an American, this is an absolute absurd idea. When you're old in America, they give you a kick in the pants. You're lucky that FDR launched all these social programs that everyone says they hate, right up until they're saving the lives of their grandmother, their grandparents, or even themselves. But these programs keep the old off our streets. We don't have positive programs to give them gardens. It sounds fantastic. I'd like a garden. But donate, and Mad Bitcoins will head to Germany, bringing with him the power of the Mad Tour that has made the price of Bitcoin go up every time previously. It works every time, almost every time. Whatever that saying is, it works every time, almost every time. But we've had some great callers this morning. We do have time for maybe one more call if you're out there. Otherwise, we're going to probably let the show go for today. It's good to be back with you on Bitcoin Talk Show. I did a short little Today in Bitcoin episode earlier. I'm going to try to do both shows at least on Monday, and I'm going to try to do the short show more often in general, but I'm going to try to make it even shorter. I'd love to be able to take fundraising out of the show. So if you have $1,000 you want to donate, just go ahead and end the fundraiser. $990. That would do it. Fundraiser would be over. I'll just buy the ticket to Germany, which I'm going to have to do on the credit card in a couple of days anyway. So it's going to be good. Blockchain Hotel, Breaking Bitcoin, and Unchained Conference in Berlin. So if you're anywhere near there, please buy tickets. Join us at Blockchain Hotel. Use the code MADBitcoins25 to get a discount. Or you can go to Breaking Bitcoin in Amsterdam or Unchained in Berlin. Check them out. Support our Bitcoin conferences. But that's about it for this episode of Bitcoin Talk Show. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks to everybody who called in. Be sure to give us a thumbs up and like. Be sure to subscribe down below. And remember, you can always go back and pause the show to donate to send Mad Bitcoins to Germany. That's right. We got Angela Merkel, David Bowie, lots more Angela Merkel and David Bowie. There's even a big David Bowie in the background. We got Mad Bitcoins, and we got a brand new QR code that works. I tested it. We even had a donation. So thanks so much. Give us a thumbs up, a share. Until next time, bye-bye.